So, who among you still remember the encyclopedia? Although I don't read them anymore, but I remember still going to the library just to research certain concepts and then write them on the notebook. But now it's pretty easy because you can just go to Wikipedia and everything's there, right? So it's different from what we grew up with. Encyclopedias came back in 2013. This is actually an ad for Adobe Marketing Cloud.
Peter, come take a look at this.
Mr. Daniels.
Mr. Daniels.
Look at this. What's this?
The numbers, they keep getting bigger and bigger.
The clicks are off the charts.
Yeah.
Yoshi, it's Walter. We're back.
Yes, sir! Ay! Tracking! More shipping!
I need more trees. More trees? I'll get you more trees.
Hey, take a look at wood pulp.
Everything you got on wood pulp right now.
He really loves that thing.
Okay, so it's something that you would also kind of see in actual corporate setting, right? People basing their decisions upon data that they're not sure if it's appropriate to solve the problem that they're trying to address, right? So essentially, if you've seen there in the video, right? Essentially, you've seen two guys who gave the report, no, to the decision maker. So here's the insight. The clicks are off the chart, right? And then from that, the decision maker acted upon that, made a decision, right? And then from there, it then becomes a cycle. Pero I think, and as a data scientist and being familiar with the community of analysts, oftentimes we tend to fall into the trap of what's important is that we apply the most complex, the most sophisticated algorithm to answer the question without thinking about, okay, hang on a minute, what are we really trying to solve? So, and I think in a way that leads to that a miscommunication or probably a communication gap between decision makers or data users and the analysts, right? Because you're communicating, this is how I've done it, right? And it's sophisticated, it's up to date, it's cool. But for the decision makers, the users, what they're concerned about is the problem that they're trying to solve. Or just tell me na lang what I need to do, right? So essentially, analytics, it's not what I guess most of the data scientists community claims it to be. It's not, something. It's not the most complex way to solve a problem. But essentially, it's generating insights from your data so that business decisions can be based upon them.
So that's analytics.
Essentially, that's analytics. And you'd be surprised later when I see the different types of analytics that probably some of the things that you're already doing are actually already analytics. And just because the others are hyping it up, you feel that you're not in, right? But it's not true, right? So that's why it's very important for us to understand what the data value chain is. So what is a data value chain? So essentially, it's like if you're a coffee lover, right, and you buy your beans, right? Your beans are your raw ingredients, right? But you can't do anything with your raw ingredients, right? So you have to at least store it somewhere, right? Process it, grind it, right? So that you can make coffee out of it, no? And have a drink. So data value chain is very similar to that. It's exactly that. So data, that's your ingredient, your asset. But data in itself is useless if you're not able to process it, right? When you have data, most of the time you store them in Excel sheets, at best probably Access databases, right? When it gets voluminous, then you'd store them in data marts or probably data warehouses. Then if you're able to ingest or rather extract data from your data warehouse, you can now do your analysis so that you can look at the patterns. What are the patterns that I can see from the transformation of my data, and then what does it mean for the business? So it is also important that we do not stop at the insight or the analytics, right? So analytics or insight without action is useless. And I've actually seen this in my experience in banking. So since we need to comply with regulatory requirements, right? There are a lot of reports that we have to produce, a lot of analysis, so on and so forth. But we do not step back and assess, okay, this is what is being required by regulatory, but what is this for and why are we doing this? And what actions or options can we recommend to decision makers, so that we can maintain performance within the risk appetite of the bank or increase ROE and so on. So the application part is very important. And of course, the decision. You have recommendation then, and in some of the dealings I've had with some clients, sometimes you get the insight, but the recommendation. But if it's something that's not really comfortable, or it's not something that they are comfortable with, or it's not positive for them necessarily, they stop there, and then that's it. For consultants, that's fine probably. If they pay, that's good. But if you're part of the organization, it can get frustrating, right? Because it doesn't get anywhere. So the data value chain is the end-to-end. How do you create from the ingredients to the actual decision? For each stage of the data value chain, there are roles who are mainly responsible for them. And why is it important for us to show this? Because a lot of the projects, especially those who are related to analytics or trying to be data-driven, they fail because of the lack of the linkage or connectivity among these roles. So you can be a data producer. Say, for example, you are part of Frontline and you put in details on the loan application system. Or for market research firms, if you're the one actually collecting or gathering the answers, from your sample, right? So that's what a data producer is. Publisher is, okay, I have the data, so how can I make it available to the ones who will use it, right? So that is where the data engineers will come in, right? Because they would structure the data set such that it should be of integrity. It's worthy of using. It's easily available and understandable by the users. Consumer, if you're the one pulling the data out from the data warehouse and you're the one analyzing, making sense of it, then that's what a data consumer is. And lastly, of course, the decision maker, that's pretty straightforward. They're the ones acting upon the insight or the recommendation that you've given. I suppose most of us are on the consumer side. No experience on the data producer, even in previous life. And often, and I think in the past batches that I've handled, most are actually on the consumer and decision maker side. But I guess it is important to show this so that you would know who to get in touch with at certain phases of your project or analytical project, right? And from a career development perspective, because I've met significant number of people, especially young ones, who are asking, so how do I get started with analytics? And this is, well, I guess a simplified, career path for you, if you may. So if you're already on the consumer side, maybe it would be easier to move to the decision maker. Or if you want to go deeper, probably you move on the publisher side, just to understand what are the data requirements for the reports or the analysis that you're doing, and so on. Or if you're just starting out and you're not a statistician or a mathematician, probably let's start with, okay, how can I pull data or create data, or how can I pull data together, integrate them so that it can be usable, and so on. So it's good, again, in terms of knowing who are what are the linkages, the important linkages are in implementing or implementing a successful analytics project, and at the same time, it's a simplified career path, right? For you. Analytics consists of the whole process, the whole chain. For the transaction data, that's probably where you would get or ingest data from your source. For digital marketing, it's commonly coming from social media. It can be from website data, search data, and so on, right? But it's a critical part of the process. Now, when you are trying now to describe or to answer the question, what is my performance now, or what is happening now? So that is descriptive. If you have done reports in the past, that's an example already of descriptive. And oftentimes you don't, you shrug it off. Yeah, because it's just the numbers. It's not called that, it's just called reports. But actually, it's already a foundation for more complex types of analytics. Now, if, in a way, it's not separated here, but when you're already trying to find out, okay, here is my performance today, or here is my performance for the past year or past 5 years. And when you are already drilling down or doing a deep dive into what led to this performance today, so what drove the performance, that's what you call a diagnostic type of analytics. It's, in a way, a subset of your descriptive. Now, when you already have your historical information, and now your goal is, okay, I know I've been performing this way. What will be my performance if I do certain actions in the next 12 years for operating plan, probably, or in the next 5 years for more strategic planning, right? So that's what predictive analytics is all about. Then lastly, prescriptive analytics. It's when you are already recommending, okay, this is what your future performance could look like. These are the different scenarios that could change that performance. So what are these scenarios and what are the likely outcomes? So, and from that, you can come up with or recommend actions, right? So that's what prescriptive analytics is all about. Prescriptive analytics, I remember a colleague of mine was asked, so by a data scientist or an analyst, no? So why aren't we doing a lot of prescriptive analytics? And among the, because it was asked to a panel, and my colleague had a very interesting answer. You know? So normally, the ones who would be doing prescriptive analytics, or maybe subconsciously, are the ones in the business, the ones who actually own the business. Right? They would be the ones choosing among the options. No? They would know what actions would lead to certain outcomes, and they just feed that information, those scenarios, right, to the analysts. So, yeah. But it's being hyped up as something, as an algorithm of some sort. Yeah, because it's an optimization or a what-if analysis, right? This is a perfect example of analytics, right? So I'm sure all of us are using Waze, and it's a perfect analytics product in one. It can do descriptive analysis, tell you where you are as of a point in time, right? What is the traffic situation looking like, right? It can tell you when you will arrive. Yeah, earlier I was supposed to arrive here around 8:40, then it became 9 a.m., right? So that is predictive analytics, right? And the best thing is that it can give you options. So which route can I take, and how long will it take for me to get there? So there's the ETA. So, and it is a perfect data app because you don't have to be genius to be able to use it. There's a lot of math, a lot of data munging happening in the background, but you don't feel it. You get there's an immediate feedback. You know, if there's traffic, the ETA will adjust, so on and so forth. And you just have to choose. It's no-brainer, right? For you, it's very intuitive. And I guess when we think about projects, right, or data products, analytical products, that's how we should think. We should have the rigor, probably, the rigor behind the app, but at the same time consider the end user of your product, right? So there. So again, yeah, this is just reiterating what I've said earlier. It can inform, it can project, and it can advise. So now that we have an understanding of the ingredients to harness the power of your data. Now, I would like to share with you a simple framework that you can follow when you're doing your analytical projects and use them for improving your business. We'd like to call we call this business improvement opportunities. And it's looking at different data and analytics scenario. So it is very important that you start with the problem or the brand goal. So what business problem or fundamental market need are you addressing? And in my dealings with some clients, and even internally when I was still employed, there were some areas who just want something because it's cool, or because the competitors from the same industry are using that, right? But not thinking about, okay, what is my problem today? What is my pressing issue now that I can solve with data? So very important to think about the goal. Then the goal or the business objective will now determine what type of data you need to gather, right? Kanina earlier when the encyclopedia video, right? So they base their decisions upon clicks, and clicks are actually vanity metrics, right? Right? And I'm not sure if it's still true today that it's still a big deal to look at the clicks, the reach, etc., but not looking at, okay, what happened after? Did it actually lead to conversion? And so on. Right? If you're just concerned with brand awareness, probably, that's the appropriate metric to look at. But anyway, so once you already know what data is required to answer your problem, then you can do the appropriate analysis on that data. Then, from your insight, you can now come up with actions. What actions can I take based on the data, on the insight that I've gotten? And then, very important, be able to measure then. How can I measure the success of my strategy, success of my campaign? It's very important because that will, again, unearth new issues, new concerns, or new improvement opportunities, right? I'm not sure if you've heard this, but at least in the community I've been with for the last decade, there's always a contention between reporting versus analytics. Analytics also cover reporting or whatever. So I guess if you look at this framework, then that's how you can somehow distinguish the two, right? When you're trying to show the performance now, just measure, the report comes in here. And then when you try to do something further, then that's where the analysis comes in. So just to give you more concrete examples, right? So suppose your problem is you're losing customers. So how do I retain my customers? So you may want to look at loyalty data, POS data perhaps, look at the performance, and then do some loyalty analysis. Or it can even be a survey, right, to your customers. Do churn analysis. So how much are we losing per customer, per segment, right? And be able to prioritize then. Who do you offer anti-attrition campaign to? Or how can you improve your rewards program? And once you've done those actions, you can then again measure attrition rate or churn rate, average customer tenure. So when the churn is lower, you'd expect the customer tenure to be higher, right? If your concern is effectiveness of your ad, so you want to optimize it. So you may want to do A/B testing on your mobile app, on your website, or analyze your content, right? Then actually do or implement the A/B testing, come up with new campaigns, based on the most attractive content for your target market. And then you can now measure what's the cost per impression, cost per engagement, cost per click, cost per view, etc. And then it goes back. Marketing research is analytics also. It's an end-to-end. It's just called that. Before it's market research when the computing power is not that powerful. Computing is not that powerful yet. The storage is not that big. So so researchers are limited to just getting or surveying their sample. Yeah, but it's still the same thing. You're getting the data, you're storing it somewhere. It can still fit Excel files, right? SPSS is popular for the market research community. Store it there, analyze it there, and then you come up with your insight. And I think a lot of the big firms, like I think the SWS, Pulse Asia, they still do mostly surveys. Yeah. For the agencies, I think that some of the agencies are still also doing the, what's the popular? Sorry. The ones, the Nielsen's. Yeah, the Nielsen's. Yeah. And their advantage is that they have, historical data. And they're still probably doing mostly surveys, right? So I guess that's an area that can be disrupted also. If there will be a company who will actually give market insight based on just things that you can get from the web or in social media, that would be great. In the US, I think there are a lot of such companies, but here in the Philippines, we're still getting there. Yeah. Okay. So now that we know, we have a framework of how we can use data, no, to improve our process or improve business performance. Now, I think it's important for us to understand, no. Okay, we have data. So what are metrics, no, and KPIs? We oftentimes interchange the two, but there is indeed a difference. No? So just to again break the ice, here is another video. No? Again, it's from Adobe Marketing. They're very good in coming up with very snappy ads.
All right, Mars mission. Give me a go, no-go for launch. Booster.
Go flight.
Retro.
Go flight.
Mission control, we are ready.
10, 9, 8, 7.
Sir, it's the sponsor. Data shows we need to make the logo bigger.
Thanks, mission control, we are ready. Again.
9, 8, 7, 6.
Sir, it's the sponsors again. Data shows millennials don't like the color. And we need a hashtag.
10, 9, 8, 7.
What? Search data shows Mars is no longer trending? They want to send them to Pluto.
Pluto?
プルード冥王星ってそれ惑星じゃないだろ
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What happened?
Sorry, guys. They burnt up their budget. We have to push the launch to Q4.
Well, you've heard a lot of no? A lot of measures, metrics. And have we been guilty of of basing our decisions from them? So, again, I mentioned before we went on break, there is a difference between a metric and a KPI, and we often interchange the two. So usually it starts with an event or a phenomenon that you would like to understand. Just like in our example earlier, the four quadrants. So if we see an event of a churn, right? That's an observation. Then if you observe a number of these, you would want to be able to quantify its impact. Maybe how many have churned, right? Or what is the loss that we incur when we lose these customers. Then when we already try to measure that, and use it in combination with the others, to quantify or to describe the event or the phenomenon of interest. That's what a metric is, right? So churn rate. So you were looking at number of churns over the total number of customers. So started with two measures, ended with a metric. But a metric in itself is not useful until you link it to an objective. So earlier in the video, you've heard a lot of metrics, right? I think what's the number, the popularity of certain hashtags, etc. Probably in terms of count, colors, etc., etc. No, so that is just a metric. No? But when you link it already to the problem, then it becomes your KPI. So this just formally defines what are the aspects that we look at when we talk about data governance. So as mentioned before, privacy and security. Previously, we were just concerned about the privacy of our own team's data, our team's performance, right? But now that we are already able to get personal information, personal data from the web. Now, all the more that this becomes paramount, no? Very important. Communication and awareness. No? In relation to some of the questions also that I've stated earlier, policies and standards. So are there policies in place to make sure that we are compliant with the accountabilities, we are compliant with the legal requirements, etc. And of course, we can begin to talk about data without technology, especially now. And then compliance, which is also related to policies and standards. So, maturity with respect to data governance, we would see that as the organization matures, no, from siloed, it becomes more holistic. No, it's the same. That's I guess that's the theme that you will consistently hear. No, like kanina, it's more of looking at end-to-end data value chain. No, it's more holistic, balanced scorecard, looking at the different aspects of the business. The same thing goes with data governance. No? And when you are still in the earlier stages of your maturity in data governance, it would always start from IT, because they're the ones who own the data.
Yeah.
They know they own the systems rather. No? And then as more decisions are being used as basis, no, for actions, decision makers, then it's more it becomes more business driven. So this is it's prescriptive, no? But it would vary somehow across different organizations. But this hopefully should give you some some guidance on how you can rate your organization in terms of data governance maturity. So for each maturity level, you would consider accountability. It's all about who, no? The role. Who is responsible for the data? No? Metadata, it's the definition of the data. Are you able to define? Do you know where to find it? Etc. etc. Data quality, this is oftentimes we interchange them, data governance and data quality, but data quality is just a subset of data governance. And it measures the integrity of the assets that you have. And then data provisioning, so how available the data are to different different departments of your organization. And this would be useful for you in our activity again. So again, as I mentioned earlier this morning, our session will be very immersive. No? So we will have another activity wherein you will have to rate, no, your organization across the maturity curve. Yeah, and you can use this as basis for rating your company, and it can actually be helpful also because there were a number of prospects that we've talked with who is interested in doing data transformation, and data governance is at the heart of that. So this can you can if you want to be able to transform your team or your organization into a data-driven one, then you can actually use this also. And that is something that will be similar to what you will see in some of your engagements with consultants. You should look at it as a spectrum, right? So it's a combination of these factors. So even if you're providing data to more, if you're making your data more accessible, the accountabilities on the data being processed, or the data being extracted from the system should also be high, or at least there should be a more rigid or rigorous set of standards. Yeah. Since we tackled earlier measures or metrics, now here are just some of the measures, no, that you would look at if you're assessing your data governance maturity. So obviously the organization and structures. No, are you structured properly such that you're able to implement policies, no, data policies better? No? Are you organized properly such that you are able to implement successfully data technologies and so on? Then, of course, data definition. No? So how transparent is your data to the organization? How well do you understand the use of them, etc.? And workflow and decisions. No? This is also related to the availability. Of course, you would only use certain types of data, or you would only have access to certain types of data for certain processes or certain workflows. And you can liken the dimensions to your perspective earlier, or even the dimension, which you can also map in your scorecard, because data governance should be a responsibility of everyone. So for the measures, probably in the roles, responsibilities assigned, have you been able, KPI there would be, have you got a chief data officer perhaps, etc. Right? Or do you have a data governance team and so on? Standards and guidelines, of course, training and mentoring. Then on the data definition, how accurate is your data definition? How trustworthy? Yeah. How consistent, complete, how valid? And then for the decision, so who are the ones? Is there a decisioning process, no, that the people have to go through to be able to have access, no, to the data, and so on. So resolution of outstanding issues. Right? So again, as I mentioned, data quality is a subset of data governance. So we can also, given that we can also measure, no, or we can also have KPIs for those. So for the dimension, this is the BPOs are very particular with this, now accuracy or quality of delivery or quality of output, the currency, how how cheap is it or how expensive it is to do a particular project or deliver a certain output. What's the coverage? No? Are we only covering this region, or are we only covering local, and so on? And then the measures, of course, is pretty similar to what you've seen earlier for the data governance. No? Validity, integrity, credibility. No? For the currency, so timeliness, how timely have you been able to give the output required of you or the data? And timeliness, punctuality, I think it's pretty similar. Right? And then completeness, uniqueness of data. And those are the indicators that you can use. No? It's not exhaustive, but you can think of or research more KPIs that would relate to those perspectives. So we're done with the data. So the first part, no, of the first stage of our data value chain. So we've extracted. We have a fair amount of idea, no, how we can get the data that we need. So once we've extracted data from our sources, the next thing that usually happens is that there needs to be some cleansing of that, and we will do that in the exercise. So yun na yung as in deep dive. But we will be using Excel lang naman for the most part, but normally if you're dealing with massive data set, you would not really use Excel for that. But the purpose of us doing it there is that at least you have an idea of how much effort or how much work or what are the common issues that your data engineers or your data analysts deal with when they get the data. And also, I will demonstrate how you can, once you have extracts from multiple sources, how can you merge them together. The first demo, so we will do data cleansing, focusing on standardization of formats, restructuring, transposition of your data, removing unwanted characters. So this is actually important because for some ETL platforms, so when there are unrecognized characters, the process or the transformation in the load do not push through. So that can create an issue. Your data will be truncated. And then lastly, finding and replacing missing or invalid data. So if we go back to our exercises, so I will just be tackling a series of functions that you can use and operations that you can perform on common data types, or common fields that you will encounter from your CRM database, from your account data set, and so on. So the first few functions would be useful for data standardization. So say for example, full name. And for some agencies, sometimes they outsource the encoding of some names. So you'd probably get the returns with different formats. Okay, so for name, if you want to use a proper case or wherein you just capitalize the first letter of the name, so you can use the function proper, and proper would have a counterpart in the other programs. So for this, so again, I'm working on the exercises workbook, and I'm now on the proper case worksheet. So again, if you want to use proper case for our name, so we can, in Excel, you can use the function proper. And so now, you don't have to retype it. Yeah, so again, sorry. So if you have defined your function already, if you want to autofill the cells downwards, so you can hover on that corner, double click, and then it will already apply the formula downwards. So if you
is it like same formula for Google Sheets?
I haven't tested it, but it would likely be the same. Could you try?
Because there's some function, for example, for Excel, that's Google Sheets. For example, indirect function.
It's not in Google. Yeah, it's one of those matching, kasi it's like a matching function. So it baka doesn't exist there. So yan yung pala, you can try it if you're working on Google Sheets. If some of these functions would work. So there, if you want to use proper case, again, you can use the proper function. Now, if your returns, your CRM databases or returns would include non-standard indentions ba tawag dyan? No? It had the names, say for example, or addresses have leading and trailing spaces. So instead of deleting, so you can use the trim function. Yeah. So another use of these functions is that you can give this as like some guideline. If your agency partners, no, the ones in coding, are still using Excel, then maybe give them like some guidelines. So you can use these functions, yada yada yada, to standardize the format. So now everything is aligned. All right.
The proper list for Google Sheets.
Okay, that's. So you have you're having problems with converting it into proper. You're changing it manually.
Yeah.
Yon. So at least you know that works.
It can be like reverted. Say, kaya diba naka-proper na siya. And the naming convention is more of the all caps.
Yeah.
And finish.
I thought it's not here, but you can actually use the upper naman, the upper, yeah, to revert. Yeah.
Pwede din lower.
Yeah, pwedeng lower. Say for example, I don't know, for some reason you have a column of keywords and you want your keywords to be just small caps. Yeah, you can also do that. So it's proper for proper case, upper for all caps, and then lower for, lowercase. So trim if you want to remove the unnecessary spaces. Yeah. Format text. So you can use the function text if you want certain values for fields to be shown a certain way. So this is just a list of possible formats that you can use. So the text function requires two arguments or two inputs. So the cell or the value that you want to format, and then what format you want to apply. So if you want to display number in decimal with decimal places as fraction, so this is the format that you can use. And so the function is text. Then C7 is just where your value, the value that you want to format, no? That's the reference. And then that is the format type, no? For fraction. Right? But normally the decimal place with the number with decimals would already suffice for.
To add as well.
Yes. You don't want to do the common denominator anymore. So if you want to just get the number in thousands, no? So you use that format in mil. So actually the mil here is just a character that we concatenated with it, no? So the more, if you observe, no, for the 10,000, 1 comma, so that's in thousands. So the more commas you use, that's the scale, no? The scale that. For the date, so if for example you have dates, whether hire date, onboarding date, application date, and you just want to get the month, right? And you want to retain you want to keep it at 2 digits, right? So you just use the MM. If you want to use the word, the abbreviated, the abbreviation, MMM. and so on. So it's pretty intuitive for the dates. If you wanted to use weekdays, right? Time of the day, the time, the date, and so on. So it's how you can format text into, the standard that you use for your database. Now, if for example, you want to get first n characters of from a value in the field. Say for example, normally, I'm not sure for the others, but in banks, normally we use campaign codes, and campaign codes would be a combination of letters and numbers which represent something, be it a branch or the channel, etc. So suppose for this, we just want to obtain all the numbers before the dash. So we can use the left function. So just type in left the text that we want to obtain a substring from, and then how many characters. So you will see later for all the values under part pound, the number of characters before the dash, all of them are 8, of length 8. So if those digits represent something, an ID or whatnot, and the single digit represents something else, but you're only interested to get the first part, or the first set of digits, then you can use the left function. And you use this when you know that the number of characters is fixed. It won't work if, say for example, the length of the character before the dash is variable. So 89, 89. Right. So that's the immediate application that I can think of for the campaign codes, at least for bank data. So there's also the right, the right function, which is just the opposite of the left function, and normally we could use this for zip codes. Right? The length of zip codes are pretty standard. So 4 for the Philippines, 5 for the US. So if we just want to get the zip codes, so we can use right. And then 5. So now we've been able to get the zip codes. So probably the ones doing the data munging would use combinations of these functions. If they're dealing with large data sets, they would just do it programmatically. So another function is substitute. So suppose we want to change part of one or a substring within a text, with some we want to replace it with a new text. For example, here, suppose we want to change all the second dashes with pound, with the number sign or pound. So how can we do that with the substitute function? So we can use substitute, then the text, the source text, and we want to change, the old text that we want to change is the dash, right? So we indicate that as the old text. The new text is the pound sign. So, would be. By the way, you should always in functions in Excel, you should always define define texts in open and close quotes. Yeah, in quotation. And then what is instance number? So it is an optional input for this function. If we just if we don't put in any instance number, no, it will change everything. But if we just want to change the first or the second or the nth instance, which is something that we want to do, so we want to change the second dash from the ID, then we just define the second instance. I don't know if this will be relevant for some government IDs or something, perhaps.
Do you want to switch both of the
Sorry? Okay, you just remove the instance number. So, yeah. So if you want to change all, it's also useful for the if you already know that there are certain texts like A with umlaut, for example, missing somewhere there in your data set, right? So just copy that and then use the substitute there. Either you replace them with blank or no space, or probably they should be letter A's anyway, without the umlaut. So that's a way of cleaning up the data, because those cases may come up when you extract from certain systems. So, yeah. So replace functions the same way. It's just that you would have to know the starting point and end point, right? Earlier, we didn't have to define when the function will start counting, no, or looking for the dash. It just looked for the dash or the nth instance of the dash, right? But here, if there are cleanups that you have to do within the text, no. So, for example, here for replace, if we will replicate, what we've done for substitute, no? So if we use replace, so the old text is still that, no? The source text, the start number. So we will have to count, no? What is the position of the second dash? So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the starting, no? The 7, you want to replace the 7th character. What's the length that you want to change? Just 1. Kasi you're only changing the dash. So that's 1. Yeah. And then the new text is the pound. So we've replicated the same result but using replace. So again, the difference is that with replace, you have to know when the function will start looking, or the position, no, the starting position. And of course, the length. Whereas for substitute, it will just find the text that you want to replace. So another way to get a substring from the middle. Kanina we've tackled the left and the right. We're just getting text from the left or from the right, right? But what if the variable or the value of interest is in the middle? So that's when we use the mid function. And it requires 3 inputs. So the source text, no? the starting position or the position from which it will start looking for the character, no? And then what's the length of the character? So how many characters, essentially. So, for example, consider this as a campaign code again. And the 75 in the middle represents something, a segment, a channel, an account officer, whatnot. So we would want to get that number. One field has missing values. I want to highlight the entire row. Kasi with this rule, right, if we just look at the missing customer name, it misses this. The Smith and Company with missing sales value, right? Or the third record, which misses the region, no? So to do that, again, highlight everything, conditional formatting, manage rules. So this is where it gets interesting. So we will combine multiple is blank functions, no? Yes. So we can use the or meaning if customer name is blank or the region is missing or and so on, no? So hopefully this works. $A. Okay, so earlier when we just considered yung missing customer name, highlight everything, no? We didn't capture this record. We're able to capture this record, no? So with the multiple is blank in combination with the or no function, we're able to capture the highlight cell rules, more rules, format only cells with blanks. Hindi, pero what this will do, it will only highlight the missing. So if we put in 3M, for example, 3M.
Nawala yung red.
Yeah, so very convenient for your... So imagine if you're doing this in system. If you want to parse, no, the name, parse the name into first name and last name, no? Assuming mukhang mukhang maximum 2 lang, no? So you can do the left, the right, the mid, etc. But a shortcut to that is to use the text to column, no? Text to column function. So click on data. Then you'll find their text to columns. It's delimited by a space. So we choose what's the delimiter. So it's a space. Right? So you have a preview here, no? How the function will separate, no? Your strings. Then for the destination, you have to choose 2 cells. Kasi you have to, for the first name and the last name. So you can do it the left, right, mid approach, or you can use text to column. If you have, like, for myself, Francis Claire San Juan, then that's 4. I will have to highlight 4 cells for destination. Yan. So another data quality issue is duplicate. Yeah, so you have to dedupe. You have multiple entries, especially if you combine multiple returns. No? So long cut, you search for all the duplicates. No?
We don't like that.
Or we can also highlight the duplicates. No? And there's a simple way to do that. So using conditional formatting again, highlight cell rules, duplicate values. this will highlight multiple values within the column and multiple values across. Now, if the whole row, no, if the whole row, if the whole row is highlighted, no, it means there is a exact same record, no, for that customer. Like for Fake Brothers, no, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What kind of yeah, so actually, instead of 13, you just have 7. So if you want to remove duplicates, so again, you go to data. Then there's this icon beside text to columns. Remove duplicates. Then you can check, no? So either you just want to remove duplicates based on just the customer name, but normally you would look at all the fields, no? So the default is all the fields are ticked. Click OK. So either you highlight then manually delete or use the remove duplicates.
Later.
So options for your for your data manager. Nasa ano pa lang ako? Nasa 900,000 pa lang ako. Ayan. Yeah. Okay. So that's for deduping. Now we will combine, no, demo on data cleansing and data merging or aggregation. So in this example, no, we have order data. We have make model, no, with the license plate, the make of the car, and the model, right? And then we have the price for the service, whether it's oil, filter, etc., etc. So what we want to do is to clean up the order data before we even merge it with the two other data set. So what would you normally check, no? So are there missing values? There are. So if we use conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and it is blank, no? Blanks. And red. So we know that there are missing values only for probably this is the mechanic code. And then visually, no, we can see that there is an unrecognized character for service. And remember, it's important that service is clean enough. The values for service are all valid, no? Or they are clean. Kasi this is our basis for connecting this data to the price, right? And the price table, on the price table, you'll see that yes, no. Pero if you're dealing with a large data set, especially if some values have unrecognized characters, it will halt the process, or it will truncate the data. Yeah, so it will not proceed. So we know that. We know that the lick plate here can be used to merge with the make model, right? But we just have to get, no, the series, no, after lick, no. no? So there's transformation, no, reformatting that we have to do on the license plate. No? So for order, suppose we want so suppose we want to replace all the missing mechanic codes with 99. No? The fastest way in Excel to do that is Control H or replace. Find replace. No? So if it is blank, meaning null value, don't have to put anything, and then you want to replace that with 99 in text. So if you want that in text, we have to use apostrophe first. 99. Then replace all.
Find blank.
Yeah.
Find what?
Sorry. Close. Let me. So again, Control H or find and replace. Then find what, you don't have to put anything. No?
Okay.
Yeah. So just put the value on the replace with field. Then replace all. So now you don't have any missing. You already have a code for all the missing mechanic code. Ay, no. Ganun siya pag number, then ginawa mong text. So alternatively, you can use the if function. No? So if the mechanic code or is blank, if is blank, mechanic code, 99, yeah. Otherwise, the value. Yeah. If you want to retain the value, no, to the column E, just copy, no, paste special. Here's the paste special. Sorry. Where is it? Yeah, paste special, values. Or shortcut is Alt E S V. Yeah. I guess the point there is we have to fill in, no? Or put in a code, no, to cluster all the missing mechanic codes. Now going to the unrecognized character, no, that can ruin all the process for you. So instead of deleting, no, the unrecognized value, you can make use of the function clean. So that already removed the unrecognized. So that is just one type of unrecognized value. It can be, I think there are 7. So just make sure, kasi no ETL application will be able to read that then kasi. So that will terminate the process. And then on the back end, they'll wonder, oh, bakit truncated na yung data, then push through. There's nothing wrong with my data. I've been downloading the same data. Yada, yada, yada. Yung pala, there's just that one or a few characters na naligaw dun sa one field. We apply the formula to everything to make sure. So, what if we want to get the weekday, no? Convert this to a weekday or come up with a weekday field from the request date. So let's just insert a column. So again, we can use text to get the day of the week. Day of the week. So we've just created, we've just added a new field, which indicates the day of the week when the request happened. If you want to check if there are seasonality, etc., are we getting more requests during weekends or weekdays? It can be month. So for this, let's just use weekday. Okay. Let's just save this to be sure. Now we want to check whether there are duplicates. Of course. So again, let's highlight first, to check whether there are duplicates. So there doesn't seem to be a duplicate na record. So that's fine. You don't have to do anything with that. So let's clear the rules. This is just for you to check if there are duplicate work orders. So the order data set is fine. So we now go to the make model. Now we have to just obtain the series, so the code after the lick no, because that is what we'll use to merge order with make model. So now we can link order with make model and order with price. So assuming that all your component data sets are clean already. So how we can combine the three using VLOOKUP, index, etc., index match, But let's make use of getting external data, SQL, a SQL approach to it. So instead of using functions, let's go to data. Then let's get data. So what it does, it connects to the workbook as if it's a database. So now you can see all the worksheets. It's treated by that function or by that option as tables, right? So we're only interested to link order, make and model, price. So let's load those data. So make sure to select multiple items, then pick order, price, make model. Then load. It's not in the worksheet. It's in the back end. Parang it's like you're establishing a connection to a database. So it's treating exercises XLS as a database with with order, price, and make model as tables. Again, medyo it's taking this a step further kasi remember sa data value chain, data, then data warehouse. So treat this like a data warehouse. You have a warehouse, then you're connecting to a warehouse data. So where's the make model? Okay. Sige, we can na lang. From file again, workbook. So the limitation lang of this is that we can only merge two at a time. Let's combine order and make model. Before that pala, so if you notice for the make model, it didn't get the first row as the header, so we have to adjust that. Okay, for the make model, so just double click that. Then on the corner, click that and then choose use first row as headers. Then close and load. So we repeat the process, no? Combine queries, merge. So order and make model. Then here is an option of how we will combine, no, or match the records. So we just know that our master database is really the work order, and we would only want to get, no, or match license plates that are in work order. So if work order is your master and then you have a reference data set, which is your license, your make model, no? You do an inner join or a left join. So the master database is on the left, and then you have a reference database, a reference with make model, no? You do a left join. Well, if you do an outer join, it will combine both data. So we'll choose left anti. No? For it to proceed, you have to select what will be the matching key. No? So it's really the licensing plate, no? And the lick plate, and then the license plate. No? So now the OK button is activated. Click OK. Let me try changing the to late. That's creating an issue. That means we have to reload make model. Refresh. Okay. So we'll just load the data again. So let's remove make model, delete being referenced by merge. Okay, you have to delete merge first. Kasi it's a connection. So we have to delete the tables connected to it. So it should be deleted first. Delete, then make model, delete. So again, go to data, get data. Make model, then double click, use the first row as header, close and load. Then go back to data, get the combine queries, merge. So again, order as the left table, make model as the right table, then use left anti. This is the process that happens when you are already connecting to your data warehouse or your database. No? So it's nothing. It at least it gives you a preview of how that happens. No. And it's something that can be done on your end, especially if your department has been given access directly to the data warehouse. So everything that we've discussed today, you can find them on the web app and our Trello.